It was right then that my whole world changed. Oh, I'm getting ready to die. I'm in complete control right now. I'm time bending. Everything is slowing to a crawl. Like split second, I am now looking at my body in the car. I haven't even been killed yet. That low, weird droning sound was replaced by a symphony. You are this glorious, dynamic, amazing, omnipotent being that just got stuffed into a meat suit with five senses and your hands tied behind your back, and now you're free. What you change within yourself changes the timeline. So you can change the future and the past by changing in present time because they're all happening simultaneously. Now I'm sitting in this 360 experience watching my life unfold. Now suddenly where, oh yeah, you've had many lifetimes. Oh God, yes. They didn't teach us that in Sunday school.
My guest today is Dr. Mary Helen Hensley, who had a near-death experience where she actually made a conscious choice to leave her body before impact. She saw time slow down and she experienced my favorite, a life review. And she now understands that we live multiple lives in different dimensions simultaneously. And she brought back one of the secrets of the universe, and that is that you can actually relate to any event that has happened in your life, not just her, but you. So this one is going to go super deep. You're not going to want to miss it. So Mary Helen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I have loved your NDE for such a long time, and I just can't even tell you how excited I am because in the spirit of doing these interviews, these NDEs run in lots of different ways, and some of them are very short and some of them are very long. I feel like yours is a longer, more detailed, and so there's so much to unpack with this that I think we just need to get into it.
Get on it, girl. Let's do it.
So I'm going to let you tell your experience in any way that you would like to share it. And then when you're done, I'll start asking questions.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Um, Most often, when I jump straight into the NDE, there is so much that led up to this event. So, kind of the Cliff Notes version of that was
Okay.
this was happening, this was poised to happen all of my life. I had a very unusual entry into this world. I had a very unusual childhood. And getting to the point where the car crash happened and the NDE unfolded, it wasn't just this came out of left field and I had this experience and was forever changed. There were so many events that were leading up to this that, the hindsight when you look back. But where I was at 21 was a girl who had had a most extraordinary life. I had been communicating with those in spirit and having the dreams, but my own guide, who was my grandfather all of my life, like I just thought this was a normal part of life. It's just what I did, like this kid over here can sing really well and I talk to dead people. It was just kind of one of those things. But what I did realize when I went off to college, how sheltered I had been in regards to this, because I'm here right now in Virginia in my mom's bedroom, where I'm doing hospice. She's 96, so I'm going through the death process right now, and we've dubbed it the death of a lifetime. And we're having so much fun. It was like, she's like, I'm just not ready to go yet. I know everybody talks about, no, it's okay to go, Helen. It's okay. She's like, I am not ready to go. I have no fear of death. I know where I'm going. I am having fun and I'm enjoying this, and I'll go when I'm ready. And so we're living every day like that. And it's so incredible. So to be back here doing this interview right now, where it all began, literally in the next bedroom is where it all went down. That was the room where it happened right there. And so, it's really, really fascinating to now sit in and amongst death and to be here playing death doula and being it with my own mother, the very portal that got me here onto this planet, that is who and what she was. She is the divine presence that was here that opened the doors to allow me to come in. And I'm like, I have some deep respect for that. But as our story unfolded, which I mean, we could be here for days talking about how that happened. When I reached college and realized that with a dad who was a minister, so my dad was a Southern Baptist, but not the holy roller kind. My dad was a bodybuilder and football coach, and like he was beloved by all because his sermons were always about sports, and it was always, you can do this. Nothing was ever like fire and brimstone, you're going to burn. It wasn't even an option. It was like me coming home as a teenager and I would walk in and I'm like, oh, everybody was drunk at the party. I didn't drink anything. Well, we didn't expect anything less. That was the answer I would get. And so for dad with his sermons and all, I was like, we don't even talk about hell because you're not going. It was that kind of a vibe. So it's really funny to look back now and realize that as my NDE approached, that I was actually so sheltered by that expectation and by the fact that my parents had to make sense of a child that really didn't make sense because I did not fit in the box from which they functioned. And anyone who's ever listened to me knows I'm a big fan of the boxes. The boxes get a bad knock. I'm out of the box and I'm in the box. And I'm like, the boxes are there for a purpose. They're there for you to jump into, to embrace, and to collapse and move on to the next box. And this kind of idea of who I was and what I could do was very difficult for my parents to digest because of the boxes from which they functioned, which was a very traditional Christian background. So, just to give you the preamble, when my parents found out in their 40s that they were pregnant again. So like I have a brother who's much older than I am, and then a sister who's 10 years older, and that like we're pretty gapped out. And so I was the blessed surprise in in the 40s. And my parents got called in, and my mother was in her first trimester, and they found out that she had a very serious case of German measles. So, we're like rocking down the highway one day, and my mom's like, do you know I was told to abort you 6 times? I was like, no, you've left that little detail out. I've been telling this story for years. And I'm like, what? And she was like, that's how convinced they were that you weren't going to be okay. Because, in those first 3 months, as that child is beginning to develop, the German measles are a kiss of death. Something is going to be wrong. So they were like, okay, and they took on the advice of the 6 different doctors. And they were like, listen, the child's not going to be okay. You're in your 40s, guys. You need to really give this a good think through of, what you want to do. So my parents go home and, dad being the minister, what did he do? He prayed. So he's literally praying about this and he has a visitation. The interesting thing about this is that he calls them celestial beings, not angels. They weren't biblical. They were celestial beings. I'm like, what an interesting choice of words. They had no wings. They were very humanoid. They were able to communicate very easily. And there were 2. And basically they were like, your daughter is going to be fine. You don't need to worry. You don't need to make this choice that you're praying about. Your daughter is going to be fine. Now, remember, I was born in February 1969. This is 1968. They're telling him this. There's no ultrasound to go, hey, here's your gender reveal. And so dad gets up from this thing and he was like, Helen, we're keeping a baby. Like he was just like, oh my gosh, look, hi, hello, Bob. So he's like, we're keeping the baby. Everything's going to be fine. And so he's told by these beings that not only would their daughter be okay, but that I was going to have some unusual abilities. So he's like, okay, so imagine now you're waiting, the clock's ticking for the rest of the pregnancy. And you're like, oh my God, what is coming, what's coming in? Some little weird alien child. But I come in, all of the complications that should have been there from the German measles were not. And so my parents now sit waiting because they've been told in no uncertain terms, she's going to be weird. She's going to be unusual. She's going to have some abilities. So they're like always waiting for that shoe to drop. So it was at the age of 4 that my dad finally cracked. For me, I was 4 years old he calls me and, this huge, big 6 foot, 6'2" bodybuilding minister with this deep voice. And he sat me down at the kitchen table and he said, "Sugar, do you know the difference between alive and dead?" And I was like, four. Uh, you know, um, I had talked all the time about my grandfather, Judge, Dr. Garland Clark. He was my mom's father. He was a surgeon from Kentucky. He worked with Edgar Casey, if you're familiar with Casey's work. He was a consultant surgeon with him. And, like just really, really wild connection. It was Casey that my grandfather had met when he was 15, when he started getting this weird healing gift. And he heard about this crazy guy who was in a traveling roadshow talking about, all things spiritual. And so my grandfather gets a lift from Winchester, Kentucky over to Lexington, meets Casey, who then tells him he's going to become a doctor. And he's 15. And he's like, "Why have I got this weird heat in my hands?" And thus began their relationship. So, there's a funny background there. And so I'm talking at the age of 4 about Judge like he's sitting in the room. And so my dad, he'd be like, "Ha, ha, ha, ha." And then one day he finally cracked. And this is when that talk happened. And he was like, "Do you actually know the difference between alive and dead?" And I'm like, "No idea what you're talking about." And so thus began that journey. That was when the thing that those beings said starts to make sense. And he's like, "Okay." So I'm doing the prophetic dreams. I'm helping my dad, the minister, write eulogies as a kid. Like it was just, and it was always, let's just keep this to ourselves. And I think my dad was terrified that I was going to be exploited in some way, to the point where they didn't even tell my family. I have an aunt who knew, my mom's sister. My mom had to have a confidant. And there was a minister in town who was a very dear family friend that I know my father confided about me in. Otherwise, we're like, let's just all talk about that outside of this. Um, so fast forward to I grow up this way, I get to college. And of course, you're in college, you want to fit in, you're 18, you're rocking the bod and you got the big 80s hair. And it's like the last thing you want to be is the girl who speaks to dead people. So I get in and realize very quickly, because it's the first time in my life I'm having to share space with another person. So I have this roommate who I adored, who is now subsequently dead. Um, and it was so interesting that she was put in my path because she couldn't have cared less. And that poor girl would go to sleep at night and wake up, and there I am up and chatting away in the night. And she just handled it like a rock star. Like it was no big deal. She thought it was amazing. But for me initially, um, I actually had to switch roommates in the beginning. But I didn't sleep at night because I didn't want to go to sleep and have somebody wake up to see some of the weird stuff happening. And so that's when I became a real insomniac. I was never a great sleeper anyway, but I started learning to catnap. And so that's how college went. So when I graduated college, I was dating a guy, and back in the 80s, when you were dating a guy when you graduated college, your parents were picking out the china and, getting ready to march you down the aisle. And so that's how I got from where I was in college to Charleston, South Carolina, which is where the accident took place. So I get out of there in May, and it was December 14th, 1991. And I was in Charleston, South Carolina. I was working for a sign company. And, I thought getting out of college, I had a big degree. I had 2 degrees. And I was going to get a great job and all this. I was mopping floors in the sign company because I couldn't get a job. And these people, Frank and Teresa Coyne, they were amazing. They were the best mentors ever because they were like, learn every business that you put your hands on from the ground up, and you will always be successful. Value and respect everybody's role. And I mean, they were amazing. So imagine that kind of intervention at such a young age. But we were having our Christmas party. And so it was hot. It was December in South Carolina. So, Santa Claus t-shirt and red shorts. And I'm getting ready to go to this party. And I had to leave my apartment, and I hit a set of traffic lights here. And then there's this big highway Any Southerner would know Highway 17. So, it goes from Charleston down to Savannah, Georgia, and it's a big highway. So I get to my red light and I'm sitting at the red light, and I always call it the metaphysical crossroads of my life, metaphorical and metaphysical. Um, and I get to this set of lights and I wait and I wait and wait because it's red. And then my light turns green. Well, I make it across one lane because I'm going to turn. I'm going across traffic and turning into town. Driver's side, by myself in the car, get past one lane, get past two lanes, get past three lanes. And then I look as I'm getting ready to turn, and there's a car hurtling towards me. So, later on, we find out this guy was 81 years old. He wasn't supposed to be driving. He'd hit a couple earlier that summer and almost killed them. And how he was licensed, nobody knows. It was just this, it was like he was planted there to be the catalyst for the accident, because there was nothing happened to him. He should have been immediately taken off the road with what had happened to him earlier. It was just really bizarre. And so he's in this big car, and he is coming towards me. And so it was right then that my whole world changed. Everything I'd ever known. And I look at the car, and it was like I was just switched on, and I went, oh, I'm getting ready to die. And I was so cash about it. I'm like, I'm getting ready to die. And oh, hang on a second. You know how this works. I'm in complete control right now. And so as I'm thinking this, becoming this thought, everything around me is now slowing to a crawl. I'm time bending. Everything is slowing to a crawl as I unwrap this package. And I am looking at that car and I'm like, all right, kiddo, how you want to do this? You can stay in the bod, let the car hit you, experience that pain, and then go, because we know you're dying. Do you know you're dying? And I'm like, I'm good, I'm dying. Or you can come out and witness the accident. And immediately I was like, I've died so many times. And I'm like, what am I saying? Hold on a second. Because you still have one foot in the life. I'm 21-year-old Mary Helen who's grown up in the Bible Belt. And I'm like, I've been to church, more than I've done anything else in my life. And I'm going, whoa, oh yeah. Wait a minute, this doesn't match. Oh, but this is how it happens. So I've got like this whole dichotomy going on. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to go out because I've done this so many times before. I don't need to stay in and experience the impact. And the split second that I made that decision, there was this sound. And it's this, of this frequency, this kind of, I've always described it, I live in Ireland, and I play Irish music, and I've always described it as the same sound as like when our piper is filling the pipes with air, and it's like this low wah, wah kind of drone. I've always described that sensation as that because it's the closest thing I can, link it to. And so there's this amazing deep vibration in the background as I've made this decision. And next thing, like split second, I am now looking at my body in the car. I haven't even been killed yet. So I am out of body while that body is still alive. And the second that I come out and I'm experiencing that sound, everything speeds back up. And it was like, and whoosh, that car knocks into me. I get what they call a T-bone accident, which is it hits me directly into the driver's side door. So the door literally folded in half. It's been so weird because I'm home here doing hospice. I've been going through all of Mom's old photo albums. I didn't know. I've been doing this for years. I didn't know there was one photograph of the car, and I found it recently. And so I didn't even know how many I've done hundreds upon hundreds of interviews and documentaries and stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't have any pictures. I found this picture. And what is so freaky, it was taken by the people in the junkyard. And there's an image of me very clearly sitting in the car. I was in the hospital. No joke. I wish you could see this. I mean, it was just crazy. I'll send it to you. I was like looking through the album. I was like, what is this? And I'm like, wait a second, that's me in a white t-shirt. Oh, that's me in a white t-shirt. And there's my blonde hair. I'm like, what is happening? So yeah, it was really cool. And I didn't even know a photo existed. And then I realized, oh yeah, they took one from the insurance adjuster had gone to the junkyard right after, and it was sent to my future in-laws at the time. And I had totally forgotten about that because I was like, nah, there is one photo and I'm in it, even though I wasn't in it. Um, so that's been wild. But yeah, so I get hit T-bone, it folds the car in half. The seat of the car folds up under me. My head goes through the driver's side window. I broke my neck in the process. So this is all like happening at lightning speed now. And I literally watched my head go out the window. It was so weird looking at that photograph and looking at the windows blown out. And it's, because when you've been like, this was 1991, guys, and you tell the story so many times. And of course, there have been like, I know exactly what happened. And there have been times across where people have challenged and they were like, oh, that didn't really happen. You just knocked your head and hallucinated it or whatever. See, finding that photograph and looking at where I took that solid glass out with my head and broke my neck in the process. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just crazy looking at that. Um, so I am looking at this from a bird's eye view, and I'm watching the car spin around the intersection, and then it comes to a halt. And you would think like the first thing it's like, oh my God, I'm okay. Here, the first thing I notice is a girl I went to college with. And my college was in South Carolina, but it was like 3 hours away from Charleston. Charleston was, 350,000 at the time. I'm sure it's a lot bigger now. But the girl that I was suite mates with was 3 cars behind me at that stoplight. So I focus in on her and I'm like, oh, there's Mim. And I wanted to go, hey, Mim, I'm like, I'm okay, everything's good. And I see her in the split second that she recognizes my car and the realizing that the dead body in there is me. I could feel every emotion, it was like I was in her body for that moment. And it was like I became every chemical reaction that took place to connect with that emotion of terror and panic and fear. And then I was out again. But what was so interesting was not one time. I am now looking down, I'm like a little puppet hanging there in the car, looking down. I've just seen the sweet mate. And I'm not like going, oh my God, I'm so young. She's only 21. And, she has her whole life ahead of her. It was nothing like that. I was not pining. I was not, it was just like, I'm out. Here I am. How is this unfolding? There was no kind of sense of, I've got to get back. Oh no, this has been a terrible mistake. I was just watching this, I would say like detached interest. It was kind of like, give me the bucket of popcorn. I'm watching this movie unfold. That's not me. No, the body was no more me than the car was me. Do you know? I'm looking at the vehicle carrying the vehicle. And I was so aware of that. And at that stage, the windows are shattered out of the car. I'm dead. A lady comes up to the car and puts her phone number and name. Imagine, this is so weird to me. Like everyone's like, "Oh," I'm going, no. She rocks up to a car with a dead person in it and puts her name and phone number on the passenger side. I just always thought that was really weird. And everybody's like, ah. I'm like, no, that's weird. That's why I'm like, I mean, like weird in a good way. I'm like, does anybody like see how wild this is? And so off she goes. I watched her do that. And then I watched a man in uniform come over to the car, reach through the passenger side window and turn the engine off. And I could hear him thinking, this engine's going to blow. And then the second he turned the car off, that low, weird droning sound was replaced by a symphony. And it was magnificent. It was, the music of the spheres, Symphony of the Stars, whatever you want to call it. I've never, ever, ever, ever heard anything like it, and I won't until I'm out of this body again. And I spend so much time replicating so many of the frequencies because I know how to manipulate frequency to enhance the experience here now because of that accident. But that music, um, and it's been interesting sitting here in hospice because there have been a few times where mom has almost taken her leave. And one of those times, she looked over at me and she said, "Can you hear that music?" And I said, "That's your music." And she goes, "Is this what you heard when?" And I went, "Well, here's the best way I can describe it. It's like we all have the same orchestra, but the soloist is different. The soloist belongs to you and you alone. The symphony, that music of the spheres in the background, that's part of transitioning from this plane into the next." And so, yes, I have heard what you were hearing, but that unique noise that you're hearing belongs to you and you alone. It's yours. It's your frequency footprint in this lifetime. And she was like, "Oh, okay." And so that's what was happening then. And this is where a lot of people talk about in an NDE, they see the light or they go through the tunnel. I was like, mine happened so fast there. It was like, I'm here looking down at the dead body in the car. No, no worries about it. Not interested in the fact that that had been me or whatever. It was literally like walking away from a crushed vehicle. It was like, oh, it carried me from A to B and now I'm here. And I just had no, the other analogy I use is like you've been outside mowing the lawn or doing the garden and you're hot and sweaty and you come inside and you take your gross clothes off and then you go take this glorious shower. You never are thinking about your dirty clothes. That's just not what you're thinking about. And that's what it was like leaving the body. And so I'm in this space now and it's completely changed. I'm in an atmosphere that is palpable. I can touch it, manipulate it. I'm fully aware of who I am. And this is what I think bothers a lot of people who are incarnate when they're like, "Oh my God, what if I forget who I really am?" What about my life I've just led? Guys, you don't forget it. You just suddenly remember a whole lot more and you remember that you've been so much more than just the person you are right now. And so that's really kind of cool because it's that like, oh yeah, you do a whole lot of, oh yeah, you get into that space. And so I'm in this atmosphere and it was like it's designed to be the cooling down space where you're like, hey, you just did human. That was tough. You are this glorious, dynamic, amazing, omnipotent being that just got stuffed into a meat suit with five senses and your hands tied behind your back, and now you're free. And they just let you sit in it for a while and go, that was awesome, And it's like it's like this glorious shower. And everything about having to forget what you are, you're now suddenly healing at lightning speed. It's like, oh yeah, okay, this is what I really am. Oh yeah, I'm so great. Oh, wait a minute, I'm so grateful that I put myself there. And you're suddenly becoming really aware of the fact that all the hardship, all the difficulties, all the challenges, these were like on your to-do list that you made for yourself while you're there. And you're like, oh my God. And it's this amazing realization. And probably one of the hardest things coming back after, I have a lot of friends who are NDEers because we do the circuit together and we've written the books but we have these funny chats. And I'm like, did you find it hard coming back in here? And then and it's really hard to get upset about stuff. And my daughters have been so funny. They know me so well and they'll be like, Mom, at least act like this is upsetting you. Like, and I forget, or I'll hyper react because I'm trying to make it look like I care,
Oh, no.
because I do care about the individual, but I don't care about the struggle because I know it's not real. And so it's been funny. My daughter, having teenage daughters going through all of that, they're in their 20s now and we just laugh about it. And they're just like, and I'm like, am I supposed to, like I'd sit in a room with somebody who's suicidal and I'll finish my dinner and then we'll chat about that. Like, because there's not this concern of like, I know what happens and you know this is your choice. And like you might not remember that right now. Let me finish this meal so that I'm energized and I'm full, like, and no, 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 that's not how you respond to a situation like that. My girls have been so funny growing up about, and yeah, getting the bills or doing whatever. I either don't respond or I hyper respond. And that is a real challenge of coming into, because it's fake. You're faking getting worried about stuff. And that's a big deal, and that really just, there's a message for you guys. It's like, think about it for a second. The things that you work yourself up and stress yourself out, and your body is so beautifully designed to let you know when you're off mark. What does sin mean? Sin means to miss the mark. End of story. And so your body is beautifully designed to let you know when you are missing the mark on the storylines that you set in place for yourself. And your body's like, hey, see this high blood pressure? You're stressing out over something that really doesn't deserve the amount of energy and attention you're giving it. Hey, do you see this? Whatever. And it's like the body is always there. And what do we do? What's the challenge? The pharmaceutical companies come in, they give you this drug, they give you this, that, and the other, and we've made them the demon and the devil when they're just handing you the opportunity to remember who you really are. Right? So we talk about it and we demonize things around us that they're just the messengers. You don't have to participate. You don't have to do that. It's okay for you to have complete faith in your body. I remember sitting with my GP last year. I was getting some blood work up, and he looked at me and he goes, you worked the whole way through the pandemic, didn't you? I said, every day. And he goes, well, I know for a fact you weren't vaccinated. And I said, that's right. And he goes, you really did the right thing. And I said, really, dude? And I said, are you going to tell that to the people in the waiting room who are out there lined up for their vaccines? Or is that the role that you're playing, that you're part of providing that lesson for them? I get it either way. And he just laughed and he was like, you are so weird. And I was like, great, thank you. But it was that kind of, it's like this knowing and this trusting of the body. I'm a chiropractor by trade. So, the idea that the body needs, doesn't need any help, it just doesn't need any interference. And we're in the job of removing interference to the nervous system so that the body can function as intended, to be there to tell you when things aren't okay. But what do? The second we get a headache or second we get a little fever, we take something, pop it down, let's get rid of that. I'm like, hey, that's your body trying to tell you that you're out of alignment. That high cholesterol, the stress, you don't drop the cholesterol and keep the lifestyle. You go and you look at that. I mean, like, oh my God, we could be here forever talking about that. But that's the beauty of of what I do, and to be able to sit in a space and to have worked in a profession, metaphysics, yes, and chiropractic with the physical and the understanding of how the human body works. And that was a very interesting part of this near-death experience for me, because once I went through that cleansing process, guess what? Two beings showed up. Guess who they probably were? The same ones that my dad met. And so these were my guides. And I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, we have guardians, guides, cheerleaders. They're there from day dot. And this is what confuses a lot of people. They're like, so you're trying to tell me that there's some being that's assigned to me for all of eternity? Oh my gosh, that's awful. Let me put it to you this way. I am Mary Helen. I am a doctor. I am an author. I am a mother. I'm doing hospice with my own mom right now. I'm an artist. I am in musical theater. I wear so many different hats. So look at your guardians this way. Yes, you were on their radar at all times, but they're not always in your story. So you have many. You have different guides and different guardians who step up at different times because they have different areas of expertise. So, like if my refrigerator's broken, I don't call the car mechanic. I call the refrigerator repairman. And so, they come forward in your story. And suddenly I realize this when when I finally realize who they are, which that was funny because I'm like, any menopausal woman will know the sensation of somebody you should know really well. And then their name's on the tip of your tongue and you can't remember their name. And I'm like, I know you. And then I was like, boom, that 15-second drop where I'm like, oh, this is my fam, this is my group. Oh, and they appear. And the next part of that journey was what we traditionally call a life review here. And science likes to say, oh, this is where the brain when it's dying looks very similar to when we're having flashbacks and memories and all this. And I'm like, yeah, this is where people like to challenge the near death thing. I knew everything that happened at the time of my accident from this view, not from this view. You can't rationalize that. You can't, so like when people, I don't care if people believe me or not. Do you know that? It's absolutely, I am so blessed with this. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to gain people's approval or to, those who will benefit from the story will hear me. Thomas Aquinas said it, for those who understand, no explanation is necessary. For those who don't, no explanation is possible. And the reason for that is not because one of us is better than the other. It's because we're all here incarnate at different levels and different points. We're all on the same beam of light. We're just at different points on that beam. And no one point is more precious or important than the other because you're coming in here to learn something that you sought. You came here to seek that information out. And then we get kind of snowed by religions and by whatever into thinking that we have to seek outside of ourselves. Well, if I can tell you all anything, it is you already are that which you seek. So what does that mean? It means that you are the divine, eternal, amazing soul who came in here, stuffed yourself in the suit, and you came to get down and dirty, make the mistakes, go through experiences that are difficult and the challenges. And everybody's like, I would never have chosen cancer. I did. Do you know? I've done it twice. And guess what I did it for? Because I needed to understand how easily the body was working on my behest because I had dropped the ball. I had let myself down. My particular cancer, I see in people who over nurture others. Hello, I'm a doctor. I'm a healer. I'm a mother. You think I could have a tendency to step off path every now and again and over nurture others? That's why sitting in hospice at 56, taking care of my mom, I'm being super conscious of taking time for myself in equal measure as I serve. When I was young, I didn't know that. I would just show up and give and give and give and give and give and give and give. And guess what I got? Breast cancer. And so I got it really quickly and I got rid of it really quickly. Why? Because that's how the body is designed. So the idea that the only way to heal is via the allopathic medical model, it is a way for some people to work through it, but to impose on other people who don't want to do that they are in some way irresponsible, wrong. That's the great farce. So, yeah, that was pretty amazing, that particular moment. So I'm in that review, and now we're moving to the next level of absolute implosion in my mind because I have this dream now that they've built that sphere out in Las Vegas. I so want to do a movie of my life, but in the sphere, because that's what the life review looked like. It was happening all around me. I just need the hookup. I just need the connection, And I'm like, I would love to be able to show people and help them to remember what it was like just for pure entertainment purposes only, because we are immersed in this and so disconnected from our true selves for a reason. And then we're pushed to believe that we always have to go back and try and find that part of ourselves. You're here to do all of it. Take the risk, make the mistakes, have the bad relationships, all of that. That's what you came here for. You return to divinity, period. Period. And that's the big joke about the earth plane. And that's what was revealed in that life review, because here's me, 21 years old, and I've just broken my neck and died in a car accident. And now I'm sitting in this 360 experience, watching my life unfold. Now suddenly oh yeah, you've had many lifetimes. Oh God, yes. They didn't teach us that in Sunday school, but I remember. And so you're watching this stuff take place. And guess what's happening? It's happening simultaneously. It's not chronological. And suddenly this idea, the farce of a chronological timeline. I'm 4 years old and my dad's having that talk with me. I'm 11 years old and I'm getting my dog Otto von Bismarck. And I'm 16 years old and I'm getting my driver's license. I'm 17 years old and I've drank too much on a college visitation and I'm raped. I'm 20 years old and I'm getting ready to go into my fourth year of college, and I'm, you know, on and on and on and on it goes. And you're looking at it all, even like, oh, there's me winning Living History Day in junior high school dressed as Groucho Marx. It's no more important than the fact that I'm going to now become a healer and help people move through healing their, it didn't matter any more or any less. It was just another story in the chapter of the book of my life. So I'm looking at this and it's all happening simultaneously. So guess what? What you do right now, what you change within yourself changes the timeline. So you can change the future and the past by changing in present time because they're all happening simultaneously. So imagine 20-year-old, 21-year-old me just coming out of college. I was a cheerleader, I was preacher's daughter, la, la, la. And now I'm learning, one of the most incredible universal laws firsthand as I'm experiencing this with two guardians beside me who are holding down the fort. Like, talk about being surrounded by unconditional everything. Because, what happens, you get out of the earth experience. And yeah, it's a little shocking, because you're alive one minute and then you look down and you're freshly dead, and like you're in this experience and they're just there anchoring down and holding that space as you remember. They're holding space for you to remember, because it's like waking up from a dream. It takes you a second to go, oh yeah, I was asleep. That didn't just actually happen. Maybe it did, but it happened in a different realm in a different way. And you're kind of like, oh, and you're shaking off the slumber. And they're there holding the space for that. So I'm in this review and I'm looking around and all these things are happening. And in any second, I decide, because I'm looking around going, hold on a second, where I just came from, they told me somebody's judging me right now. This is where the grand decision of do I get to go up or down is happening. And I'm like, this is not how they said it was going to happen. And I'm laughing, I'm crying. I'm like that glorious space of, oh yeah. And I suddenly realized that I'm judging myself. I am critiquing and watching, and you cringe going, oh, don't take that drink. Guess what's going to happen? Don't do that. Are you kidding me? That stranger that you don't know, you're wasted. I was drinking vodka out of an IV bag. I was 17, and I'd never taken a drink before. And I'm at this college party and this really hot guy is, doing the come with me. And so, it's like Scooby-Doo, don't go in the basement. I went. And you're now watching this unfold going, don't go. But it's like you're watching a movie. It's not real. It's not defining anything about you, bar the fact that some part of you wanted that experience. And of course, that one experience I have used with thousands of people over the last 30 something years, So but you're having that realization that this is why these things happen. How could something bad happen to somebody good? Y'all, give that a rest. We're all good. We all come from the same space and we're all going back to the same space. You were here to experience, inevitably somebody's going to go, oh, so you're telling me that I come from the same space as a pedophile? You're telling me that I come, yes. So you may hit pause or scroll on by right now if that bothers you, or you can stick around and listen for a second and recognize that that is so incredibly amazing, because it means that we aren't inherently good or bad. We are travelers coming from a space to experience. And the only way that you can experience the dichotomy and discern in this earth plane the difference between right and wrong, darkness and light, good and evil, as if someone plays that part for you. So in that moment, when I realized that I'm the one judging my own performance, I was like, I quite like that girl. She's really fun. She's really funny. And I think I want to go back and finish. And just like that, at breakneck speed, I go back and I find myself and I'm lying on the pavement and I'm being strapped to a board, the collar put around my neck. I'm in the back of the ambulance with someone stroking my hair, going, "Don't worry." I'm screaming about dying. And she's like, "It's okay. We're not going to let you die." And all I want to say is, "I just was dead. I've already been there." And out I go. And the next thing, I wake up in the ER, and that policeman who had stuck his head through the passenger side window is standing next to my bed. And he says, "You are one lucky little lady." And I respond with, "I know you." And he takes a breath and he goes, "No, And I went, "You were at the accident." And now he is freaking out. And he was like, "There's no way you could know that." And I went, "Oh, yeah. You need to talk to my friend Mim. She's my old college suite mate. She was a few cars there. She saw it happen. A lady came up and put her name and phone number in the front seat of the car. A guy in uniform reached in to turn. Oh, that was you. You were the guy who turned the engine off." And he closed up his notebook and he walked backwards to the door, and I never saw him again. And that, my dear, is my life beyond life.
Wow. I remembered so many parts of it as you were telling it, but I forgot how much I really loved your experience for a lot of reasons. I have been obsessed with life reviews. And the reason is because I feel that when people come back after that experience, it's what changes them the most, because you understand for the very first time that what you do to another, you literally do to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love for you to talk about that part just a little bit, and how maybe you approached your life a little bit differently after this, knowing what you knew from that part of your life review.
Well, what was interesting is in getting into the work that I do as a healer, as a doctor, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is my life's work. This is what, my mission or my purpose." I approached those things that are commonly seen as someone's purpose from a completely different angle. It wasn't my purpose. It was something that I was here to do. And we get very romanticized versions of what a purpose is. Is this I know the internet seems to be doing weird. Are we okay?
It's totally fine. You're good. Yeah,
Okay.
you're good.
Okay. So, we get this idea of what one, I have people come to me all the time. "What's my purpose? What's my purpose? And I'm going, you have many purposes while you're here. I think you're looking more, you're trying to equate purpose and identity. What is my identity? Who am I? The reality of the identity is that each of us takes on one of these bodies, and we drive around the earth experience at whatever point in history we land on that timeline, and we indulge ourselves in whatever is the going flavor. It could be racism, it could be imperialism, it could be capitalism, it could be any ism. And we fight for justice, and we do this, and then one day it dawns on you, and this is the beauty of the life experience, the life review. Oh my God, I didn't go in there to change the world. I went in there to change myself within it. And that is that nugget from, from a near-death experience that I think is so key. Because especially now, oh my gosh, the world the way that it is, it's so exciting because it's just absolutely heated and riled up and ridiculous all at the same time. And people think that their cause, their reason is to change something bad that's happening, and they will exhibit some of the most horrific behavior in the name of their cause and not realize how utterly foolish they look. And, you have super religious, very conscientious people who are calling people horrendous names and doing awful things in the name of their God or their interpretation of that religion. And I mean, it's nuts. And it's across the board. And I liken it to if someone went to the gates of Harvard and they're pounding on the gates, and Harvard Law teaches law. And they're like, I want to learn how to cook. Well, we don't teach that here. We teach law. It's my right. You must change your curriculum and cater to my needs because I want to learn at this school how to cook. We don't teach that here. The cooking school was down the road. It's my right to learn that here. And that's who we've become. We want everything that's uncomfortable around us to change in the name of progress and justice. And we lose ourselves in the process, not realizing what a fool how foolish we look, because we're becoming the very things that we attest to detest. And so this is a beautiful aspect of that life review, because when you go into that space and you see that picking this phone up and taking that sip of water and getting that cat down out of the tree, or helping that person figure out how to heal from cancer, they all are equally important. Every single action. And one of the funny things about me after being dead is like, I talk to myself all the time because I'm laughing at me, and I will stick my hands into the dryer to pull the clothes out. And I'm like, oh, this is so lovely. The warmth on the clothes, and this is amazing. And I am in love with the process of taking the clothes, excuse me, out of the dryer, just as much as I am sitting here telling you this story. And you become so invested in every moment.
I think that that's the goal, because on the other side, my experience was that there was only one moment, one ever-present moment. Eternity was a state of being. And so you could ever only be what you were in that moment. I think that's beautiful. You've taken what is on the other side and you've actually implemented it into your life with that understanding. And it comes back to that whole game that we're playing here. I know you've referenced it as a game. I was shown it was a game. I would love for you to talk about that part of it, because to your point, you just said that every act is as important as another, but we give certain things so much importance
more.
and weight, right?
Exactly.
And it affects our whole life, but you don't do that.
No, and it's because people value their moral compass. They invest so much into what their moral compass is that they then in turn devalue the storyline that somebody else is living by. And I'm going, well, how interesting, you spend so much time in your prison ministry and it becomes your identity. But if you didn't have any freaking prisoners, who would you be? Do you know? And it's like, it's that simple. And I kind of liken it always to Monopoly. It's like, one of my fondest childhood memories sitting in this house is being on a summer day when we'd have a rare day when it was lightning and whatever. We had the best neighborhood kids. Like we really had this fun, active neighborhood. And so I cherish the memories of the stormy afternoons where everybody was in our basement and the Monopoly board came out and we were just fired up. And so, did I know that I wasn't actually the silver dog? My brother always took the shoe. Do you know, like, did we know we weren't those characters? Sure. But for that afternoon with the lightning and thunder in the background, we suspended reality and became that. And we fought like cats and dogs with Scott, Todd, and Lisa from across the road. And we were like, Park Place is mine. And I am buying it right now with this, pink $500 bill because I can. Now, we know in reality that you can't buy that for $500, but we suspend that reality in order to immerse in this. And boy, it got heated. We were riled up. We were cheater. He cheated. We were in it with all the feels and all the emotions, and we were immersed in that. And then at the end of the game, we packed it up and we went back to our respective homes and got on with life. And that's really what each time we immerse ourselves here, it's like we're pretending for that moment that we come in here and that someone can actually harm who we really are. It's not even possible.
Because the soul can never be harmed, right?
Can someone kill your body? Yep. And if they are going to kill your body, you already knew it was going to happen before you came in.
Right.
So, give it a rest. So what on earth is stopping you from immersing yourself completely into this? It's like right now, half of my friends, the ones who didn't think I was nuts, now think I'm completely nuts because I'm sitting here. I live in Ireland for the last 27 years. I have a practice there. My home is there. My car is there. I like all of that is around, and that's my reality. That's where I live. My girls live in London. And then it was like this. Boom. I knew when the time came, I was going to give my mom as long as humanly possible because she's fiercely independent. We have traveled this world together. We've had a freaking ball. So I wasn't going to come in on top of her until she was ready. When she moved to 24-hour care, I was there. And so instead of just going, oh my God, it's time for mom to start this journey, I've been preparing. So I made it so that I could just drop everything and leave. Well, I didn't have to inform the whole world around me about that. So people are going, well, you can't just leave and walk away from your life right now. Well, Ireland's going to be there when I'm done. My house will still be there. My car is still there. I've got a really good friend looking after my lovely dogs. And, they're getting a vacation from me and I from them. And my mom is getting my undivided attention. So, and it unnerves people because they're like, well, oh, good for you. You could walk away. I prepared for that. Nobody handed me the money to go do that. I've been working the whole time I've been here. I'm earning it so that I can be here. There's no boohoo story behind it. I made this happen. I am architect of my own reality. There isn't anything but this present time right now. And my mother lived beautifully. Therefore, we orchestrated together that she was going to die really well. And so far, so good. And when I'm done with that, I'll return to that other life and it will all still be there. And if by chance, by missing a payment for something or whatever, or something is fallen away or taken away, it's no longer mine anyway. I have no fear connected to the loss of anything. And that is the most
That's powerful.
Oh, is it what? It has allowed me to be completely immersed in this experience. I wouldn't have missed it for anything. And it's, once she's gone, she's gone. And my greatest treasure, it's not any of the stuff that's in this house, it's her stories. So, we're 16 chapters deep in her book right now. This is her second book, y'all. She's 96. She wrote her first when she was 91. And the stories are hysterical. And they're a take on life from the perspective of a 96-year-old that's looking at the stuff that we take so seriously right now. And she's looking back going, y'all, I've seen it everything from the atomic bomb to the Great Depression to the Beatles to us. She's like, it came and it went, and it came and it went. Who am I within that? Stop spending all of your time here trying to change the injustices, right the wrong. Here's a real simple one for you. Don't be the asshole in the story. How about that? How about that?
Love it.
You're all
So
caught up with the tomfoolery and assholery that's going on around of you. Don't partake. How simple is that?
love it. I think that those are words to live by for sure. So let's go back to the life review for a minute. The life review is such an interesting. I love that you likened it to the sphere. I've been there and I could see what you're talking
Wouldn't
about.
that be so cool?
Yes, it would be so cool. I'm actually seeing The Wizard of Oz this month there with my girls.
Oh my gosh, a friend of mine has just left for it tonight.
Funny. Okay. So in the life review, one of the aspects that happens quite frequently is that somebody relives something not just from their perspective, but also from the perspective of others. Can you tell us what you felt about other people that you saw in experiences, or were they only experiences where you saw yourself doing something and nothing outside of you?
No, 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 no. It was interacting with things. And do you know what? It wasn't the obvious stuff. So it's like, one of my favorite things I always do, because we have this between where I live in Ireland and Athlone and Dublin, there's a toll on the way. And that for years, and then they made it electronic. I was so ticked off. I loved paying the toll for the car behind me. I
Oh,
just like, because, and not just because, oh, that's so great that you do that, because I would get so tickled at the reactions. Some people would drive by beeping and waving. Other people are like, what are you doing? You think I can't pay my own toll? Watching the different reactions was hysterical, and I was just
yeah.
entertaining myself with that. And so, oh, how sweet you do that. Or I got a message because my website was on the back of the car, on the spare tire, looking for a sign from the universe. This is it. And it had my name, my website. And a guy messaged me once and he goes, you're the lady who paid my toll, and I want you to know where I was heading. And he was on his way to kill himself. And then you'd have 800 other stories where it wasn't that case, but it was just a gesture, and it wasn't for them. It was not this altruistic move. I was doing it for myself. I was entertaining myself and I was making myself feel good. There's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's a really interesting aspect of that. But it goes into that whole life review thing where we think it's the big things, where we showed up to the homeless shelter, or we did this. Y'all, lifting up something this and being conscientious and in the moment and present with the fact that you're getting ready to ingest this water, that you're nourishing yourself, that you are just as important. Just as important. And that was such a huge part of that for me. Looking at, it's so cliche, kind of the black and white aspect of, oh, I was mean to that little girl, and then she went off and had a horrible day or whatever, and I didn't know what she was going through at home. Those stories are there for sure. And then there are the simple things where you didn't intend for there to be an outcome, and there was. That's what's so important.
So why are we so interconnected? Why do you think you see all of that detail after you've had the human experience? What's the benefit? Is it
Imagine if you
strictly
were
for you?
chasing that. Yeah, imagine if you were, because we're all control freaks. Do you know? Imagine if you were trying to control that and make that happen. Like if 24/7 you're trying to do the right thing. Oh my God, you'd be exhausted. Do you know? Like you cannot control that. It's something that's meant to unfold organically. And you start to reveal that true essence of yourself. When you have to think about it, or you're doing it because, hey, oh, I'm on Instagram. Let me tell you where I am. I look fantastic. I'm doing this. It's this is a wonderful time for people to start really embracing that concept, because people post things because, like I'm on Instagram all the time, Facebook all the time, because it saves me having to write individual messages to my family members and stuff like that. And, when it's something, here's what we did today, or whatever. And then there are Instagram stories where people will post about something fantastic that they did. And you can tell in a minute Is it because they are posting because they want you to see that they did something fantastic, or they're sharing something that's really beautiful because they want to possibly be an inspiration to somebody else who might think, how can I better use my time? Do you know? It's like right now, I'm here doing this. I've dropped everything and I'm here with mom. There's a school of belief that I'm here because I want to look good. I am using mom's death to do whatever. I'm like, rock on, y'all. That's great. That's I am here finishing a story. The story is I came in with her and she's getting ready to go. And once she's gone, I've gotten no further connection to the place where I made landfall. And it's a really interesting time. And so it is important to me in her life and in collecting her stories that I spend time honoring what was important to her, which were her simple stories. These legacies and things that she's leaving behind are so simple. They are so simple. They're so funny. All of the humor throughout it is so funny. And they were effortless. And so those moments that really matter as she reaches the end of 96 years here, the things that are coming up in her stories are what you would be like, huh, that was funny. And that's it. No big revelation, no big kind of I changed the world kind of thing. It was that she lived and enjoyed and savored these little precious moments, these humorous anecdotes. And that's what she wanted to share. That's her legacy. That's what she wanted to leave behind, which is like saying, I got it. I got it.
Only took
It
96 or
only took
7 years for
96
to get
years,
it.
which is a blink of the eye. But this is my legacy. This is what's important is that the little stuff mattered just as much. And it was like in talking with her, as a minister's wife, she was like, I used to write the letters of condolences to, people's families and all this. She said, I hadn't lost Dick. I hadn't lost my husband. I had no idea. And I was writing these letters and acting as if I knew what they were going through. She said, until I lost dad, I had no idea. But then she realized that. And that became something that she grew from. And
Beautiful.
so this is why that life review for someone who's coming back in is so important because you're revealing that part to yourself. You're not going to drop all the nuggets or else there's no point in going back. But that part, don't forget to pay attention to the small stuff because all of it's small. All of it. And in its smallness, it's infinitely big,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we bring back after that review is looking at each of those moments. Cause I was like, the stuff, y'all, that came up in my review was not what I was like laughing. I'm going, there I am sitting in the back of a church and I'm 10 years old and little Amy Whelan is going up because, they would call at the if anybody wants to receive the Lord Jesus Christ as their Savior, come on up. Then they march down the aisle and then they're welcomed in. They're going to get baptized and all this. We were 10. Like, what did we know? And up marches Amy Whelan. And I am on the back pew of the church and I'm yelling, she's doing it for the juice and the bread. I saw that in my life review.
Oh, wow.
I was in hysterics because it was funny. It didn't hurt anybody. It didn't harm anyone, but it was a highlight of a moment going, what a farce that the religion that you landed in thought that a 10-year-old was capable of making that kind of commitment and choice, and then would base everything in their lives on that and run everything through that filter. So they were set up for failure. And I just went, but that's
Tell
how
me
it
about
showed
that.
me.
Tell me about that. You just said they're set up for failure because you and I have that same viewpoint. I've been on the other side. I know that everybody goes. It's not an exclusive club. So you came from the religion, and there are people that are seeking and trying to understand this and trying to make sense of it. What do you say to them?
So let me tell you one of my favorite stories that
Okay.
talks to
Yes.
that. So,
Yes.
dad is a minister. He was amazing. He was a world champion bodybuilder. He was this dude. But unbeknownst to any of us, he was terrified to die. So imagine you spend your whole life, your whole career teaching people not to fear whatever. And when he ends up with Alzheimer's, what comes right up to the forefront? His fear of death. He would shuffle around everywhere. He wouldn't lie down. It was crazy. And so, this one night, mom and I are in the nursing home with him, and he's shuffling around. And I tell the story because to me, it might be one of the most important things that has ever happened to me. Not the near death, not the books, not the anything. This experience for me really kind of brought all of it home because dad was devout and he was so disciplined. And again, like I said at the beginning, he was not a holy roller. He was just disciplined. We're not even going to talk about hell because you're not going there. I'm going to make sure of it. You know, he was that guy, super coach. And we get to the end and we're in this nursing home. He'd had an awful day. And he was like obsessively shuffling around the room, washing his hands and all. He wouldn't go flat because if he did, he thought he was going to die. And at this stage, he hadn't been able to speak for like 6 months. He couldn't, he mumbled, you know, with Alzheimer's, it robs you of, you know, and for such a beautiful orator, everything was, you know, as a bodybuilder, it was physical. He'd stand in the mirror and cry, looking at himself. And then as an orator, he's resulting to, you know, that's it. So you can imagine how that was his soul's way of telling him, none of that stuff matters, dude. None of it, you know? So he's moving around the room and all of a sudden he goes and he gets in the bed and he lays back. And my mom is like looking at me going, what is happening right now? And I was like, on. And he starts reaching up. Now mom is like, is he dying? And I was like, no, because when a soul is getting ready to make its exit, it looks like for those of us who can see that, you know, just because our rods and cones are a little bit different, it looks like fireworks. She calls it sparks. It looked like fireworks, and that wasn't happening in that moment. And it can happen, you know, I've seen it happen up to 18 months before somebody passed. That's kind of, I think that's my record for what I've seen where the spirit gets ready to take its leave. But usually it's a lot closer to the exit. So, you know, like if I'm getting ready to get on an airplane and a lot of people are sparkling, I'm not getting on that plane. You know, but that's what it looks like. And I've done that, by the way. And there he is, and he's reaching up and he starts shouting, I can see it clear as a bell. Like the man has not spoken coherently in half a year. I can see it. I was like, what can you see, Dad? And he's like, the land beyond the river. It's more beautiful than anything you ever wrote about, sugar. I was like, hey, Dad. And so my mom is like, are we okay? Is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, everything's okay. Just shh. And he was like, Mama's there. She looks so young. And the other thing that we didn't know about Dad was that he had feared his entire life that his father didn't make it to heaven. And this was a big deal for him. You know, he had, by my father's standards of what a good father looked like. And everybody doesn't fit. And I mean, Jesus would have a hard time matching up to my dad's standards, you know? So by my father's standards, he had always felt like his father didn't cut the mustard, didn't make it. So after seeing his mother, he freezes and he was like, oh my gosh, Daddy's there. And he turns over and he looks at my mom and he goes, Helen, I've had it wrong all along. He said, everybody's welcome here. You can't mess this thing up. And that's been the mic drop moment of my life. Not the death, not becoming a mother, not doing everything. That moment was for me. That was the validation. And that's years after having had the near-death experience and knowing this. But that's the piece that brought it home for me. And I went, to be able to witness someone else getting it, to feel the joy of watching someone organically reach that conclusion, where as a healer, as a doctor, as the author, as a lecturer, as whatever, we think our soul's journey is to make sure that everybody hears the message and gets it and all. to watch it unfold for that person in exactly the right moment was everything. It was everything. And that's what I would say to that is just to, you can't mess this thing up.
I love so much on so many levels that you shared that. I mean, just so good, so good. Will you explain what you understand about how we live different lives at the same time? So simultaneous dimensional lives, because it was something I think that people are really interested in.
And this is so easy to explain now. So back when this first happened, this was a very difficult concept to explain to people. And now people are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And it was because these came along.
Okay.
And so I remember the very first time that one of my daughters said, Mom, you've got like 47 different apps open right now, and you're complaining that your battery keeps draining. She's like, you don't need a new phone. You need to close your app. I'm like, you can close apps? They're like, yeah, watch, swipe, swipe, swipe. I was like, what? She's like, Mom, your Facebook is running, your Instagram is running, your bank account thing is running. You're like, all of this is happening simultaneously. I'm like, wait a second, that's a thing now? And so I'm like standing in front of an audience now going, you want to know about multiple lifetimes happening simultaneously? The very same way you have a smartphone and you've got multiple apps that are open, you might not be utilizing one, but each one is drawing from your energy. And everybody's like, oh, and there it was. So easy to explain that something could be happening simultaneously. But I wasn't aware of it. Just because you're not aware of it doesn't mean it's not happening. So you mean another version of me? Yes, I do.
And so like,
Yes, I
would it
do.
be, would it be the example of you tell the story about that you went to that party and you got really, really drunk drinking that vodka out of the IV bag. And you made the decision when the guy said, go. Is there another version of you that didn't go to that party or didn't drink that alcohol or didn't go down the hallway with that guy?
Yeah, and they're called my daughters. So that part of me, that projection of me, that DNA passed on to me, those situations that my daughters would have confronted and seen and could have done the same thing, but yet knew my story, learned from that, and made a different choice.
So
That
not
happened.
so you're saying that your daughters learned because of an experience. It's not necessarily that you have another version of you.
I could have another version of that too.
Okay, that's what
Really,
I'm
really
talking about.
easy. So
Yes.
when you realize the brain's chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
here's present time, and the only way I can access a memory is via a chemical reaction traveling a neural pathway.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so with that chemical reaction, suddenly that past event is very present and alive. Ask anyone who has PTSD from an event that took place 20 years ago. Their body is always reliving the energy of that experience until such time that they learn how to deconstruct that neural pathway. And that's the work that I do now in frequency, is teaching people how to deconstruct um, uh, those neural pathways to keep them in present. Because sometimes they're done with the storyline. They're done. They've learned it,
Right.
and they don't know how to detach from the energy of it. And so I'm like, oh, that's simple. It's just housekeeping. We use this
Okay.
particular frequency because everything is frequency.
So if it's housekeeping, I know one of the things that I learned a long time ago is that we actually tell a story maybe from our childhood about ourselves over and over again. Let's say it's something bad. And every time we tell ourselves that story, our body releases a chemical mediator. Maybe it's dopamine. And now we're rewarded every time we hear this story over and over again. I think that that's the part that makes it difficult for people to release that story because their body's working against them. So how do you get somebody like that to the point where they've spent 40 years reliving something from their childhood that has become a chemical mediator, a reward system
It
for
takes a
themselves?
couple of weeks with frequency.
Okay, tell
You
us
go
about it.
in. So, the life here is, that we live as human beings is really easy to map. It's actually quite predictable. There are certain things that are very replicable. And one of those is the different frequencies that we utilize. So fear, one of our greatest challenge, name a challenge outside of this. You can't. Fear, guilt, grief, shame, anger, self-loathing, and projected loathing from others that we carry, they all live in the same neighborhood. It's 396 hertz, right? 417 hertz acknowledges the fact that you've experienced those things, but it's like 396 is like the bags full of garbage. 417 takes the garbage out the door. And so you can utilize a frequency to break down the neural pathway. We don't want to smooth over the potholes like therapy allows us to talk about the same thing over and over in hopes that it's not quite as traumatic when we talk about it the next time. I'm like, blow that road up so you can't travel back to the memory. And this amazing individual that you've become and all the things that you've studied and learned and grown through over the years, use that person's brain to now build a new road back to a memory, to something that actually took place. So this is the way that we combat that, because you can travel that same road, but if you blow the road up and force someone, because the memory is still present, it still happened. Now I have to access it from a different road. But wait, I've already done all the work around that. I've read the books, I've done the courses and all that. Right. So build a road based on that. And this is why a lot of people will come to me in healing and they're like, I don't understand. I've done all the work around this, but I keep attracting the same kind of thing in. This is exactly why. Because you're traveling down a pathway, which is happening in present time, by the by. You're just accessing a memory that's stored in a file cabinet here in present time. But the chemical reaction that allows you to access the memory is making your body think that the event is taking place over and over again.
Of course. Yes.
So you blow it up.
So when you say blow it up, what do you mean? Are you playing a frequency?
You're
What are you doing?
you play a frequency and you deconstruct those neural pathways. It takes in the human body about, I always do 28 days because I love a 28-day cycle, and because nature shows it to us everywhere.
Sure does.
So it takes about 28 days to deconstruct that neural pathway.
And where's somebody getting this frequency? Because I do know that when you listen to sounds in different places, different platforms compress things, and then they're not a pure frequency. So for example, on YouTube, on Spotify, on iTunes, compression. So tell us about that.
So I was very fortunate many years ago for a very special being, I'll leave it at that, to walk into my life, who was able to master this type of frequency in a way that we haven't even experienced here yet. So there's an app, it's called signs.app, SINES, like sine waves, signs.app. And you're like, oh, okay, this sounds like something I could listen to on YouTube. There is nothing like this.
Why I asked about it.
That's why you asked. There's a reason that it's all I use. And because the technology and the understanding of the manipulation of the frequency has to go through certain channels that bypass the limitations of the technology we have at our fingertips. And it takes somebody who comes from a space where that is commonplace. And so, wait, are you kind of alluding to there are people who walk amongst us who, yes, I am. Let me say it for the people in the cheap seats. We are not all that is here. There are beings walking amongst us who have a capacity for healing. I came back after a near-death experience and I can touch somebody and see what's going on in their mind, body, and spirit. I wasn't like that before I left, but I am like that now. There are so many people that I have met who aren't actually people as you would know them at all, because I can see them now, I have some portion of the veil because I chose to come back here, but a lot of it is off. And so I'm able to see what's really around us and interact and it just brings me so much joy. That's why.
Helen, I want to ask you, when you said somebody else and you said you wouldn't say who it was, I feel like I immediately knew it was an ascended master of some sort that you encountered.
A nice way to put it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you use binaural beats at all?
They're in there. So it's kind of like, the frequencies that I was using before and after, before signs and after signs, Yeah, it was like using, I could use some tuning forks. It's like using dinosaur bones. I had to use what was at my fingertips. And so, but now what we have and the access we have to these frequencies, and what they're able to do is phenomenal.
So give me an idea of what somebody's been able to do with these frequencies that you've witnessed or you've helped.
Anything, name it.
Curing blindness.
Yes. Brain tumor. Yes. Cancer. Yes. But remember, we cannot bypass someone's storyline. So if it is a case where that individual has learned, I learned this early on. As soon as I came back from that accident and I realized that I had been changed and I could literally touch someone and alter their chemistry, I had about a 6-month joyride where I went around and I was like, you're healed, you know, like, oh my God, this is amazing, blah, 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 until I got a big old smack across the wrist going, are you done yet? And I was like, and luckily it was, you know, how old was I? 22. And I went, oh my God, I can't do that. I'm removing the very reason these individuals came here.
You're
I'm
altering their
taking away the
contract.
storyline.
Yeah.
And then guess what? They would get sick again.
Of course, that's what I was going to ask you. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, I
So
used
I
the
am
lottery
very
example.
fortunate that it happened at such an early age because, yeah.
I use the lottery example for people because a lot of people will be like, I'm going to put my intention and I want to win the lottery. I want this money. And they can put as much intention as they want on it. It'll never happen because it will change what they came here to do if they were to win that.
Right.
So there are certain things that we are not able to manifest when it will alter why we came here.
Correct and right.
I'm so glad you're talking about this. I don't get to talk about it very often.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, people don't like to hear things that are uncomfortable or they don't like to hear, but you know, but what about the law of attraction did a lot of damage too, because
It
it wasn't
did.
explained. It wasn't explained. I mean, like never has anything been so true than the law of attraction, but the way that it was presented and explained as in like this infinite abundance, I'm like, faith without works, y'all. You got to put the time and the effort and the elbow grease in. And just because you sit back and manifest something, it's like, I was having a really amazing conversation once with Michael Bernard Beckwith. He wrote the
Oh,
Four
wow.
Agreements.
Yes, who was on that.
And
Mhm.
we were talking about the difference between having a vision of something and envisioning something. The vision is like hope, and hope's the beggar. Envisioning something is
The feeling,
bringing it,
evoking the
landing it in
feeling.
your core, and you
Yeah.
are creating, you are understanding the act of the creation and what's necessary in the act of creation rather than sitting back and the abundance is just going to flow on me because I believe and I ask for it. I'm like, are you serious? And so many people fell for that, you know, and they thought that, and so then when it didn't work, then it's rubbish. Everything
Right.
I'm like, wow, you got so far to go. And that's okay because we're not all supposed to be in the same place in our understanding with that.
Well, is it more that we weren't ready as a collective to understand that? Because the real missing part seemed to be the vibration of which you were thinking about those things, unless you had a certain vibration. And that was part of it. I don't know that we've fully even evolved enough to unlock it fully right now.
But you know, in the idea of not the of the collective and the one, we're not meant to be the one, and we're not. The collective also gets a rap for the fact that we as a species in the consciousness, not we're all at different levels of understanding.
Right.
So the collective, what happens to the collective? You and I better be very grateful for the fact that every experience that we're bringing into our lives right now isn't based on what the collective, or else we'd be doing nothing, sitting on the side of the road picking our noses. You know, like because the collective as a whole, I don't want to be lumped into all of that because you've got beings that are here that give the appearance of being completely unevolved who are more evolved than anyone who's ever walked the planet. And the people who are actually unevolved think that their job is here to help them and change them. And so, you know, the collective as a whole, it's about you, the individual, because what there is only you. There is only you. And all of the spirits and all of those individuals who are here experiencing Earth, they are the version of the same energy that you come from. So are we all coming from the one? Yes. But are we at Are we all experiencing ourselves in the same way? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Is that unequal and unfair? No, because that's not what this is about. This is for you and the version that you're playing right now to come in and learn specifically what your greatest challenges are right now.
Then I'm going to ask you to speak to something that I see in the comments quite a bit. I don't agree with it. It makes me laugh every time I see it, but people start commenting and saying, it's a prison planet. I was forced to come here. And I think that there's nothing further from the truth.
Nothing further, but that's because you've been there and so have I.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The idea, I would never choose to come back here. I would, and I know where I come from, and I've seen it, and I've seen what's here. I love Earth. I love coming here. I love the darkness. I love the light. I love the comedy. I love the sick sense of humor. Oh, so you like the bad things that happen to people? Yeah, because I know it's not real. Do you know? Just like if I watch a murder mystery on Netflix, that's on Netflix. It's not happening.
Yeah.
In real life, people lose people to murder and all that. I get that, but this is just a grander scale. I understand that those things are happening in their lives for their own personal growth and evolution. And
you know what I love?
Yeah, go ahead.
I love you.
I love you too.
I love you. And I would imagine that there are people right now chomping at the bit because they're like, where do I find her? You are fun. You are funny. You are real. You are articulate. I love your energy. I just thank you so much for what you're doing. So tell people where they can find you, work with you.
It's so simple. MaryHelenHensley.com.
Okay.
No, and that last thing that we were just speaking of, I've realized how important it is. And so I'm utilizing this time, and one of the fun, and this is the comedy you have to have with this. I have now, in being here since April in hospice with mom, where she's, nearly died a couple of times, and she's like, I'm not ready yet. We have watched 264 episodes of Murder, She Wrote. And so my next book is going to be called Death by Murder, She Wrote. And that's how I'm taking these big concepts that we've just discussed and bringing it into a space where people can understand how, they think they aspire to all of this. And it's that one tiny little thing in front of you that really matters. And you get so worked up and so worried. And, oh, look, somebody wants to play.
She's been bothering me for a little while.
I know.
She's so awesome.
And that if you can just look at it and the challenges that you have and the pains that you have and you think I don't walk around with it. I'm bubbly and happy and all this. I am in pain 24/7. Most people would never know it because that's not what I want to do. I wake up in the morning and I go, hey, is the pain I'm in bigger than what I want to accomplish today? No. And the day that it is the day that I'll close my eyes and I'll be gone. Do you know? And that's that.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. What are you doing? Take the risk. All of it. Make the change, write the book, sing the song, do whatever it is. Just live, for God's sake, and stop pointing the finger at everybody else. Oh my God, like the elections were just here. And it's like, blah, 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 in Virginia, oh God, please, ick. Do like really listen to yourselves? Like, really? You're supposed to be this, but you're saying this and you're acting like this. And I'm like, yawn. That's why I actually love Facebook, because it's so much fun to watch people's BS and to watch them fall into their own traps and to watch them say one thing and do another. And it's so much fun to watch that happen. And the beauty of it too is knowing what we know and having been where we are, we still mess up. And
of course, every day.
I love that part when I mess up, because I just start laughing at myself and I've just had another opportunity to, to sharpen up and to, check in and to be real.
That's what it's all about.
It is what it's all about. And I appreciate you and the platform that you've created because it makes it so easy to then tell these stories.
I love that. Well, I'm so grateful. And I want to thank you for what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
And right back at you.
And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch. and to share these experiences. So thank you everybody for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
Do you believe that love never dies and you want to hear stories that prove it? Well, hit the subscribe button. You belong here.